Some people can talk for hours and still reveal nothing. Others can sit quietly in a room and make everyone else feel like they've accidentally admitted all their secrets. There's a strange magic in silence. Nietzsche would say it's one of the most powerful tools a mind can wield. So powerful that you can outsmart anyone without uttering a single word. While the world is busy shouting opinions, defending positions, or nervously filling space with chatter, the person who truly understands how people think sits back, observes, and lets the chaos do all the work. The funny part is, most people are completely unaware they've handed over control. You don't even need to speak. Just noticing is enough, and the rest unfolds naturally. The real secret is in seeing what others cannot. People carry clues about themselves in the tiniest gestures, the shift of a shoulder, a quick glance, the way their eyes hesitate before answering. Nietzsche believed that a mind attuned to these subtle signals holds an enormous advantage. While others are busy convincing you of their cleverness, the quiet observer pieces together patterns, motives, and vulnerabilities without drawing attention. The brilliance lies in inaction. The more you watch, the more information you gather, and the less the other person suspects what's happening. Every fidget, pause, and over-explained point becomes a breadcrumb, leading straight to the truth they are desperately trying to hide. And the best part? They're providing the breadcrumbs themselves. History is full of people who mastered this kind of quiet genius. Leaders, generals, thinkers, and strategists often achieved influence not by talking more or proving their intelligence in every conversation, but by silently observing, calculating, and responding at the perfect moment. The presence of a mind that sees clearly without performing is unnerving. It disarms because people unconsciously recognize the difference between those who must constantly assert control and those who command it effortlessly. The terrifying, almost comical reality is that someone with a keen silent intellect can dismantle arguments, detect deception, and predict behavior without raising their voice, all while everyone else thinks they are in charge of the conversation. Even in everyday life, the principles apply. Meetings, social gatherings, or casual conversations become laboratories for observation. While people scramble to impress, assert dominance, or appear rational, the person practicing Nietzschean silence collects information at every turn. Every joke, complaint, compliment, or nervous laugh tells a story. Every attempt to control the room exposes weakness or inconsistency. The person who can read these details without reacting is already 10 steps ahead, silently charting the psychological landscape of everyone around them. And here's the subtle humor. Most of these people believe they are performing for you, but it's really you who is performing for them, whether they know it or not. Nietzsche argued that this approach is not about manipulation, it's about perception. Most people speak to prove something or influence others, but the quiet observer doesn't need to prove, influence, or assert. They simply understand. Silence is their tool, perception their weapon, and subtlety their strategy. When you do not speak, people fill the silence with their own insecurities, revealing their intentions, fears, and desires without realizing it. The more someone tries to appear in control, the more they expose themselves. And the best part, you haven't said a word. Your mind is doing all the work while others think they are performing it for themselves. The power of such intelligence lies in self-mastery. The quieter you are, the more you notice. The more you notice, the less others can hide. Nietzsche emphasized that the truly intelligent mind does not need applause, validation, or argumentation to assert itself. Presence alone is enough. People sense it instinctively. Subtle observation, clarity, and calm judgment radiate influence. It's a kind of humorously unfair advantage. While most people are busy proving their cleverness, the silent mind quietly collects all the evidence it needs to act with precision. And in doing so, it transforms ordinary interactions into exercises of influence and understanding that leave others off balance, often without realizing why. In short, outsmarting anyone instantly isn't about knowledge, eloquence, or argument. It's about presence, perception, and patience. It's about noticing patterns, contradictions, and hidden motives while remaining completely composed. Nietzsche believed that the strongest minds cultivate this capacity intentionally. They watch, absorb, and wait for the right moment to act, or sometimes to not act at all. The act of doing nothing becomes the most powerful action because it forces others to reveal everything they cannot hide. And the subtle comedy in life is that while people think they are performing for attention or influence, the person mastering silence is quietly running the room, orchestrating the interaction without anyone realizing it. Once you begin practicing the art of silent observation, the world starts to reveal itself in ways you never noticed before. Ordinary interactions, which most people treat as simple exchanges of words, are actually dense with signals, intentions, and unconscious truths. Nietzsche would argue that these signals are the real conversation, the one people don't even realize they are having. Every glance, every hesitation, every over-explained sentence carries information. A person who can notice these details without reacting gains an almost preternatural advantage. And the subtly hilarious part is that most people think they're being clever, while they're actually performing for your awareness. The irony is delicious. People trying to impress or dominate often hand you the tools to outsmart them instantly. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Humans are wired to seek validation, hide insecurity, and project confidence, often simultaneously. Most attempts at persuasion, argumentation, or charm are actually unconscious performances designed to influence others' perceptions. Nietzsche's insight is that the most effective way to gain understanding is not to engage in their performance, but to quietly watch it unfold. While others rush to argue, explain, or justify, the silent mind collects data. Inconsistencies in stories, subtle shifts in tone, micro-expressions, and behavioral tics that betray true intention. Every interaction becomes a field experiment in human behavior, and the one who observes without reacting has the clearest view of the underlying patterns. The power of this approach lies in restraint. Most people rush to respond, eager to demonstrate knowledge, competence, or superiority. They fill silences with words, often exposing themselves in the process. Nietzsche's philosophy teaches that the quiet mind holds strength precisely because it refuses to participate in these unnecessary displays. By withholding speech, you force others to reveal what they cannot contain. The more they speak, the more information they provide. And because you remain composed, they never suspect that their own words are your tool. It's almost comical, like watching someone try to juggle while their hands are tied, completely unaware of the invisible spectator, noting every misstep. Even subtle humor plays a role. When people are nervous, insecure, or desperate to appear clever, their attempts at control often backfire. They over-explain, contradict themselves, or make absurd claims in the hope of impressing others. A quiet, observant mind can notice these quirks instantly, making it easy to anticipate behavior and respond appropriately when the time comes. Nietzsche believed that intelligence combined with restraint produces influence far beyond what words alone can achieve. The silent mind doesn't need to correct, argue, or dominate. It simply notices, understands, and positions itself advantageously. And the effect on others can be quietly hilarious. They feel compelled to perform, reveal, and react, while the silent observer remains impervious. Historical examples abound. Leaders, generals, philosophers, and strategists often wielded their power not by speaking more, but by listening, observing, and acting strategically. Julius Caesar, for instance, could sense hesitation, fear, and ambition in his allies and opponents long before they acted. Thinkers like Nietzsche himself, or Stoic philosophers, cultivated an awareness of human behavior so sharp that they could predict outcomes and influence decisions without overt manipulation. The terrifying aspect for others was never a weapon in hand or a loud declaration. It was the quiet presence of a mind that understood more than they dared to reveal. And here lies the subtle amusement. The ones trying hardest to dominate the room were often blindsided, completely unaware that their silence, or their lack of it, had already determined the flow of the interaction. Even in everyday life, the strategy works beautifully. Meetings, social gatherings, and casual conversations are full of unconscious revelations. People constantly display their priorities, insecurities, and intentions through micro-behavior. A raised eyebrow, a hesitation before a sentence, or a subtle shift in tone can indicate confidence, fear, or deception. The person who observes silently collects all of this, creating a detailed mental map of the interaction and the people involved. No words are necessary. By the time others realize the truth, the silent observer already understands the landscape. It's almost absurd. The louder someone tries to dominate, the more they reveal, while the quiet mind simply observes, taking note and laughing inwardly at the spectacle. Another key to Nietzschean silent intelligence is self-mastery. The more you understand your own thoughts, motives, and triggers, the less you need to assert, explain, or defend. A person who is grounded in self-awareness naturally exudes confidence without needing to perform. This clarity amplifies the influence of silence. People instinctively notice composure, accuracy, and perception. They are unnerved by a mind that does not react predictably to chaos, social pressure, or manipulation. The humor, subtle yet undeniable, is that those who attempt to control, persuade, or impress are constantly adjusting themselves to your calm, silent energy, often exposing more than they intend while you do nothing at all. The mechanics are surprisingly simple in theory, but require deliberate practice. Notice patterns in speech, tone, and gesture. Track inconsistencies between words and behavior. Observe reactions to subtle questions or pauses. Focus on understanding motives before reacting. The more precise your observations, the more accurate your understanding becomes. Nietzsche emphasized that mastery over these details produces an almost invisible influence. People begin to behave differently simply because you are observing them, even without a single spoken command. They sense insight that cannot be seen, and it shapes their actions. The effect is cumulative, invisible, and quietly devastating to anyone untrained in self-observation. Even conflict becomes an opportunity. When confronted with argument, insult, or pressure, the silent mind refrains from impulsive defense or counterattack. By maintaining composure, you compel the other person to reveal more, often contradicting themselves in the process. Nietzsche argued that timing and patience are essential. The mind that waits, observes, and analyzes exerts influence without appearing to. The one who rushes to argue is already at a disadvantage, revealing strategy, weakness, or blind spots before realizing it. And the subtle humor persists. People often don't recognize how thoroughly they've been outmaneuvered until much later, leaving the silent observer both amused and empowered. The final element is perception itself. Nietzsche believed that understanding is superior to expression. Words can be misunderstood, misinterpreted, or ignored. Perception cannot. The silent mind perceives patterns, motives, and truths that others cannot see. By cultivating this, you achieve an influence that is virtually invisible, yet profoundly effective. Conversations, meetings, and social interactions no longer feel like random events. They become exercises in awareness, analysis, and subtle positioning. The humor is natural. Everyone else is still acting, reacting, and performing, while you quietly navigate the room like a chess player 3 moves ahead. In essence, outsmarting anyone instantly, without speaking, is less about intellect in the conventional sense, and more about cultivating presence, observation, and patience. Nietzsche teaches that the most powerful minds act through perception, not words. The silent observer sees what others cannot, understands motives that remain hidden, and exerts influence without appearing to. The terrifying, subtly hilarious reality is that people who believe they are in control are often being guided by someone who hasn't even said a word, whose advantage is entirely invisible. By the time someone masters the art of silent perception, social interactions begin to transform in ways most people never notice. Conversations, meetings, even casual encounters become opportunities to gather insight, anticipate behavior, and shape outcomes without saying a single word. Nietzsche believed that this form of intelligence was one of the most formidable powers a human could cultivate. It's subtle, invisible, yet profoundly influential. The truly intelligent person doesn't need to dominate with speech, prove cleverness, or assert control. Their presence alone communicates authority, comprehension, and anticipation. And the quietly humorous truth is that everyone else keeps performing as if the game is theirs, while it has long since shifted in favor of the observer. A key element is patience. The silent mind understands that information reveals itself over time. Rushed reactions, impulsive arguments, or attempts to dominate an interaction only serve to obscure the patterns. Nietzsche emphasized that the strongest minds wait, watch, and absorb before acting. They perceive weaknesses, inconsistencies, and hidden motives without drawing attention to themselves. The subtly comedic aspect is unavoidable. The people rushing to assert their influence often reveal exactly what the quiet mind needs to anticipate their next move. While others flail in chaos, the observer's mental map grows more precise, more complete, and more powerful with each passing moment. Observation alone, however, is not enough. Nietzsche's philosophy stresses self-mastery as the foundation for influence. The person who is grounded in self-awareness is immune to the distractions of social performance, manipulation, or ego-driven drama. This allows them to respond, when necessary, with precision rather than impulse. It also amplifies their silent authority. People intuitively sense composure, clarity, and foresight. They may not understand why, but they feel the difference immediately. The humor lies in watching others expend energy trying to impress, argue, or convince, only to be quietly outmaneuvered by someone who has not said a single word, and who doesn't need to. Nietzsche would argue that understanding people's motives before they express them is the pinnacle of intellectual strategy. Most individuals are driven by desires, fears, and insecurities they rarely acknowledge. By observing patterns in behavior, speech, and subtle cues, the silent mind decodes these hidden forces effortlessly. This skill is disarming, almost unnerving. People instinctively realize that the quiet observer knows more than they should, even if they cannot articulate why. It's a form of power that operates invisibly, without coercion, without noise, and often without any recognition. The subtle comedy is that the more people try to hide their motives or assert control, the more they reveal themselves to the perceptive, silent mind. Historical examples reinforce this principle. Strategists like Sun Tzu, political tacticians, and even philosophers wielded enormous influence by cultivating the ability to perceive and anticipate rather than react loudly. Julius Caesar, for instance, could read subtle hesitation, ambition, and fear in allies and opponents alike, using this insight to plan actions that seemed miraculous in hindsight. Nietzsche himself, and other thinkers who understood the human psyche, emphasized the quiet accumulation of insight over the noisy display of intellect. The terrifying aspect for others is always the same. The invisible mind, silently observing and calculating, can outmaneuver those who rely on words, bluster, or superficial intelligence. Even in modern life, the same dynamics apply. Social hierarchies, office politics, and personal relationships are riddled with subtle clues that reveal intentions and weaknesses. A raised eyebrow, a slight pause, a nervous laugh, these are all data points. The person who has trained their mind to notice and interpret these cues gains an enormous advantage. Nietzsche's insight is that words often conceal more than they reveal, while silence combined with observation exposes truths almost effortlessly. The power of the silent mind lies in the ability to see what others cannot, understand motives they attempt to hide, and predict behavior they have not yet acted upon. Another crucial factor is timing. Observing is one thing, knowing when to act or when not to act is another. Nietzsche emphasized that the silent mind uses information strategically, intervening at moments that maximize clarity, influence, and outcome. Interruption, correction, or intervention is reserved for precise moments when it matters most. In all other cases, silence is itself a tool of influence. People adjust their behavior unconsciously in response to observation, revealing their own patterns while the silent mind simply notes and waits. The subtly humorous aspect is that the louder someone is in their attempt to assert control, the more predictable they become, leaving the quiet observer free to navigate the interaction with ease. Self-mastery and patience converge with perception to create a terrifyingly effective form of intelligence. The person who cultivates this skill operates beyond conventional social games. They are unflappable in the face of manipulation, immune to panic, and capable of reading patterns with a clarity that leaves others bewildered. Nietzsche believed that the combination of self-control, strategic silence, and acute observation produces a power that is more influential than any speech or argument. The humor lies in watching others exhaust themselves in verbal sparring, only to be quietly and efficiently outmaneuvered by someone who hasn't spoken at all. The practice also reveals deeper truths about human behavior. Most people overestimate the power of words and underestimate the signals they reveal unconsciously. The silent mind recognizes this and leverages it effortlessly. When others are frantic to assert authority, prove themselves, or manipulate perception, the observer quietly collects insight, anticipating reactions and predicting behavior. It's a kind of strategic invisibility. Influence operates without performance, and mastery emerges without the noise of competition. Nietzsche's brilliance is in recognizing that this is not manipulation. It is understanding, and understanding itself is power. Finally, the transformational insight emerges. True power in social interaction does not come from speaking more, arguing better, or asserting louder. It comes from seeing more, understanding deeper, and acting, or choosing not to act, with precision. By cultivating a mind that observes without reacting, anticipates without being obvious, and understands without explanation, you achieve an influence that is invisible yet undeniable. The subtly comical reality is that while others scramble to dominate, persuade, or impress, the silent mind remains calm, collects information, and positions itself advantageously, often leaving the rest of the world none the wiser. The lingering reflection is this: what if the words people used to impress or argue didn't matter at all? What if the most powerful influence you could exert was entirely invisible, entirely quiet, yet more effective than any argument, speech, or display? Nietzsche's insight teaches that by mastering perception, patience, and self-mastery, you can silently outsmart anyone, instantly, without saying a single word. And when you notice it, the subtle humor is unavoidable. The world continues to speak, shout, and scramble, while the silent observer has already mastered the game.